Imagine being a teenager, struggling with anxiety and depression, but unable to seek help because your school doesn't have enough counselors. This is a reality for millions of students across the nation today. The mental health crisis in schools is a growing issue that affects students' well being, academic performance, and future prospects. However, we can take action to provide better mental health resources and support systems within our education system. As someone who has researched education systems and their impact on students' mental health, I believe the issue of mental health in schools is urgent. It affects more students than most realize, and addressing it requires systemic change. I will first highlight the severity of the mental health crisis in schools, then discuss the underlying causes, and finally propose effective solutions to ensure every student has access to the mental health support they need. Research has shown that there is prevalence of mental health issues among students. According to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, 1 in 5 students in the U.S. experience a mental health condition each year. In recent years, surveys have shown that even more than 30% of high school students report feeling sad or hopeless for a prolonged period, and nearly 17% of students seriously consider suicide. This number has grown significantly within the last few years. I believe this is due to the amount of resources that schools are realizing they need. I also believe that the percentage of kids dealing with mental health issues has truly always been high, but they just did not want to tell anyone, and with the new school counselors and resources, they are more open to talk about it. With these mental health issues come poor decision making and low motivation to complete simple tasks. For example, research by the American Psychological Association reveals that students with untreated mental health conditions are more likely to perform poorly in school, struggle with concentration, and experience higher dropout rates, showing that the lack of mental health support leads to a vicious cycle where struggling students fall further behind academically, which only worsens their emotional distress. Now that we've seen the severity of mental health crisis in schools, let's discuss the root causes of this problem. This problem can continue to grow if schools do not take action in supporting their students. According to the American School Counselor Association, students have shown that more than 70% of schools report not having school counselors to meet students' needs. In fact, the ratio of school counselors in the U.S. is approximately 1 to 500, far higher than the recommended ratio of 1 to 250. This isn't taking into account the amount of small rural schools that have access to 0 of these resources to begin with. With the average school counselor to student ratio being double what it needs to be, that means there are so many kids that are not getting the help they need to thrive in a school environment. And to think that any person can have an endless potential, but mental health can cause them to never meet it because they didn't have the chance to talk about it. Many people also believe there is a stigma that comes with mental health, and there's a lack of education on the issue to begin with. Many students are reluctant to even seek help due to the stigma surrounding mental health. In some cultures, mental illness is still seen as a taboo subject, and students may fear being judged or labeled. With this bad image of mental health, no one will truly know how many people are dealing with mental health issues because they are scared to tell anyone with the fear of being seen weak or immature. Dr. Judith Morgan, a clinical psychologist, notes that the shame surrounding mental health issues in school is a major barrier to students seeking the support they need. Clearly, the causes of mental health crisis are deeply rooted in both the lack of resources and the cultural stigma. But there are solutions that can make a significant impact. There are ways that we can bring change to schools with more resources and support from staff. The state of California has already taken action by passing laws to increase funding for school mental health services, allowing schools to hire more counselors and psychologists to meet student demand. According to the California Department of Education, studies have also shown that when schools have access to more counselors, students report feeling safer, more supported, and more willing to seek help when they need it. Another way that schools can help is with programs and school-wide meetings on mental health and what it truly is. Teaching people about mental health can help reduce the stigma around it and help people come out about it without feeling ashamed and weak. According to the National Council for Behavioral Health, programs like Mental Health First Aid are being introduced in schools across the country, providing students, teachers, and staff with the tools to recognize signs of mental health distress and how to offer initial support. I have seen a change locally at our middle school as my mom has become a resource teacher for the 8th graders. She has created this sort of sensory room where kids that are in her class can, for example, relax on a yoga ball and play with a stress toy to get their minds off of things for a small amount of time. She has seen an increase in willingness to participate and even better grades from her students since she has supplied these resources. Sometimes allowing kids to be kids and making them feel comfortable in a space that is usually strict and down to an exact schedule allows the students to feel more free and willing to absorb the content they are given. Mental health issues in school can also create cliques. People can be outcasted from others because they are not always in a good mood or mentally present. But educating students on what is going on, then they may be able to understand the situation and be more respectful and accepting to these kids. School counselor Dr. Susan Hernandez says, by normalizing mental health conversations and educating both students and faculty, we can create a more open and supportive school environment with more support and education. We can tackle the mental health crisis in schools head on. We've now discussed the alarming rise in mental health issues among students, the causes behind the crisis, including insufficient resources and the stigma, and how we can address it by increasing access to mental health professionals and implementing education programs in schools. If we truly care about the future of our children, we must prioritize their mental health. Let's not allow our children to suffer in silence. By acting out, we can ensure that every student, regardless of background or location, has the support they need to thrive mentally and academically. The time for change is now.